Hey everyone, are we ready for the next part of our morning? Yes? All right, one person's ready. Are there other people that are ready? Yes! All right, I'm feeling the energy, excellent. So I am so excited for this next panel discussion. We have an amazing panel moderator and then three incredible young leaders and entrepreneurs who have incredible different and diverse backgrounds that are all tackling and challenges in their own very unique way. So I'm very excited for us all to learn and hear from them, and then also to have a dialogue with you as well about their experiences and the lessons that they've learned along the way. So I'm just going to introduce the moderator, and then she's going to come up and introduce the rest of the panel. So Nozipho Mbanjwa, sorry, I practiced that so many times beforehand too. Nozipho is the CEO of The Talent Firm, a specialized talent management firm advertising on millennial talent in South Africa. She is also an internationally acclaimed conference moderator in demand for her unique and insightful ability to facilitate intelligent conversations with depth and breadth. I have seen her in action, and that is not an exaggeration. She has moderated conversations with the World Economic Forum, United Nations agencies including UN Women and the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, among other global bodies. She extends her prowess in dialogue to CNBC Africa, where she, as an award-winning journalist, she broadcasts financial market shows into 48 African countries, reaching millions of Africans daily. We are so blessed and humbled to have Nozi here with us, so please give her a very warm welcome.
Okay, I'm short, so I'm going to come this way. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So I happened to be here in the room when Mame was on stage. And when Mame spoke, your energy was a whole lot higher. So I'm going to demand a Mame good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me. Ashley, thank you for the introduction. It is an absolute honor. It's an absolute pleasure to be back in Rwanda and to be back on the Mastercard Foundation stage. I love coming to East Africa and in particular to Kigali. Now, this morning, we're going to have a conversation that for me, as I was thinking about it, a very common and very well-known African adage came to mind. And the adage says, if you want to go fast, go alone, right? And if you want to go far, go together or go with others. And I thought about this adage because the conversation that we're going to be having is about collaboration and it's about community. But I also had to be mindful of the reality that the African markets that you and I come from have a lot of complexity. That in fact the communities from which we come are riddled with a range of social challenges. And what it made me think was that it actually complicates this adage a little bit and makes it easier said than done. But the panelists that we're going to have this morning, who are going to come in and share their experiences and share their insights with us, are leaders who have taken the decision not only to live with purpose, but they're leading with purpose. And what they're doing is also ensuring that this is a shared purpose. And what this means is that as they work, they are rooting their work in a collaborative method within the communities within which they work, so that their success is also the community's success, right? And so we're going to be hearing from them how exactly they've done this, what have been the big challenges of collaboration and shared success, and what are the big lessons that they can share with you as you also go out to change certain social challenges and to overturn certain social challenges within your own communities. So I'm going to allow them to come up on stage. I'm going to invite Elie Mandela. Elie is a social entrepreneur. He's also the National Director of the Hult Prize for Rwanda, and this means he's really been coordinating all the work around all the universities in Rwanda. He's the co-founder. Yes, you can give him a round of applause. He is the co-founder of Shared Opportunities, and this is a platform that connects young people across the continent with opportunities around the world. And he's also the former chairperson of the African Leaders Initiative for East Africa, with a particular focus on alumni. So here is a fairly young man, recent graduate, who's been working collaboratively across a range of institutions, and of course across a range of geographies, including Africa and connecting Africa with other parts of the world. We're also joined by Yvonne Mburu. So Yvonne is the founder and the CEO of Nexakili. Nexakili, Yvonne was sharing with me this morning, is a mishmash of two words that put together means the nexus of African brains, right? So she's going to be telling us exactly what this means. But in a nutshell, what Nexakili does is that it's a social enterprise that is connecting the global community of African scientists and African health professionals. She's also a 2017 Africa France Young Leader and an Unleashed Global Innovator. And this is a group of some of the world's best talent that is working on the Sustainable Development Goals and ensuring that we get closer and closer to the targets of these goals. So maybe let's give Yvonne a final round of applause. And last but certainly not least, we're also joined by Henri Nayakarundi. I also practiced, Ashley. Henri is the CEO of ARED. Now, ARED is the African Renewable Energy Distributor, and this is a technology for social good. At a very high level, this is a business that operates both in Rwanda and Uganda. They've developed a concept that is almost like a business in a box. And it's a solar kiosk, and it offers customers phone charging and airtime top-up services, Wi-Fi, and intranet, free digital content, and a Bluetooth printer. And ARED leases the kiosk out using a franchise model. So when we talk about social entrepreneurship, we have a serial entrepreneur, but who's also very much in the social enterprise space, in which there's lots for us to learn from Henri. So maybe a final round of applause for him. Now, before I sit down, there's one more thing that I do want to remind you of. This conversation is not a conversation between Nozipho and the three panelists. This is your conversation. And so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to challenge you to lean into this conversation. I'm going to come to the audience and open up the conversation for questions, for comments, for anything that you want to say. Please use this opportunity. I know that there are roving mics in the room. Get up, tell us who you are, and give us a short, sharp, concise comment or a question, and indicate who you'd like to ask that question. We're also live on Facebook in this particular conversation, so we have people in different time zones across the world that are also dialing into this conversation. So you might notice from time to time, I might pull a question that's not from the audience, but somewhere in the world, someone is plugged into this conversation and they want to know what we're talking about, right? So, that being said, let me get to the first part of this conversation. And Elie, I'm going to start off with you. I read out a list of very impressive organizations that you've either led or co-founded. But one of the things that is almost consistent for me is that you're constantly working with a range of stakeholders for shared success. So the question to you is, I know that collaboration isn't always easy. What has been your most challenging experience of collaboration? How did you overcome it? And in the process, what did you learn from it?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. All of you. Like she mentioned, I'm very graduate, so I can feel you guys. I can feel what you guys are feeling right now. And basically, one of the reasons why I'm actually being involved in all of these organizations I've been part of, there's one common thread that goes through all of them, and that's the fact that there's so much potential of young people in this continent that's being wasted. And every single organization that I've been involved in has been about how do you create programs and platforms that enable young people to thrive. Yeah, so that has been my main drive in all the organizations I've been part of. And some of the so I'll talk about I'll basically talk about two of the organizations I've been part of and where we've been doing some collaborations. And one of the biggest challenges is actually how do you get people aligned to what you really want to go for. Yeah. So for example, we were having, there is, I don't know how many of you know Women Deliver, but it's a global organization that's basically spearheading women and girls' rights around the world. And there's a point where young people who were leaders within Africa were supposed to go for a conference in Denmark, and 80% of these young people were all denied visas. Yeah. So what happened is, within the people that were supposed to go there, there was a platform, WhatsApp, which has been very easy to create. They all gathered themselves and decided, okay, what's our shared goal is actually to go and showcase what we're doing in our countries. So we actually started an advocacy through Twitter to actually ask for visas for these people. So what happened later on, so there was this huge conversation that was going around through Twitter, explaining why these young people need to get visas because they're doing so much work in their countries. So they definitely do not want to stay there. Yeah. So what happened, and the trend that happened, is actually that more than, out of the 80% that were denied, 10% were the ones that did not finally get the visas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the biggest challenge when it comes to now, when I look at the organizations that I've been part of that were not collaborative, is the fact that, one, you do not really have an aligned goal. So if you're not able to bring together that aligned goal of what you want to do, then it's going to be really difficult to move forward. Yeah. So, and then another example was recently we brought here a huge conference that was called the World Healthcare Student Symposium, and was bringing students from all over the world in healthcare. Yeah. So once again, so what we had what we call international campus ambassadors, and these were people who were working in different countries. And they were mobilizing students from their countries to come and participate in the conference. So while we were in the very beginning of getting them on board and working with them, so the biggest challenge there was trust of them knowing if we actually are interested in, or we have what they want is what we have in mind. Yeah?
Right.
So it's basically how
So trust and intention.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So in the very beginning, it was difficult to collaborate because they thought we wanted to just use them to bring people. But so in the end of it all, I think the biggest challenge is if you're not able to align when it comes to the goal and vision that you want, and building the trust that's really required. Yeah. So those have been some of the major challenges.
And these are really beautiful lessons, really strong lessons that without shared vision, you cannot ignite shared action. And you can't even begin to get to that action if there isn't inherent trust in the system from everybody who's actually collaborating. Thank you for that. Yvonne, let me come to you. I mean, I started girl fanning over you when I started reading up about you. And one of the things that came up was that you have been recognized as one of the 100 most influential Africans in 2017 by the magazine New African. And I looked at that and I thought it's so easy for us to claim individual success. And I wanted to find out from your perspective, how have you ensured that what could be individual success is instead positioned as shared success within the community of people that you work with and work for?
Well, so thank you for having me, and thanks to the Mastercard Foundation. To be completely honest, for me, it was by design that I was always going to work for the greater social good. In other words, I didn't do this thinking from the beginning, well, I'm going to have individual success, and then eventually I'm going to try to move into other people. I started from the point of view of how can my work be impactful in whatever it is that I'm doing. And in my case, I'm a scientist, an immunologist, and I wanted to figure out how I could apply my skills back in my home continent. And the question was always, well, it's not just me, it's a lot of people who are in the same situation as me who live abroad. How can we as a community actually be able to do more for the continent, be much more engaged? And so my starting point was already a shared point of view. And so it's interesting because lots of people do ask me, so what does it feel like to be, one of the most influential Africans? I don't know. I feel very, very regular. I feel like a really, really normal person. I think if you don't go searching for that, I think it's something that comes to you if you're focusing on what your objectives are, and if your objectives really are having the impact that they're supposed to have. What you must do though every day is earn it. So for me, it's more of a challenge. In other words, you can't just be told this isn't something that's fixed somewhere that, oh great, you won this prize, or oh great, you've been recognized for something or other. It's that for the rest of your days, you spend your time earning the right to actually have won that title.
You remind me of the distinction between success and significance. because oftentimes we can get trapped in the concept of success, because success is individualistic. But if you begin to live your life for significance, it's significance for others. And almost what I'm hearing from Yvonne, which I think is important and we shouldn't lose, is that question of, for whom am I doing this? And if we get that question out right from the get-go and understand that it's not for myself, even when the accolades and the recognition come, you are one of Africa's most influential people for Africans and for the people that you serve, and I think that's really powerful. Henri, let me come to you. I read, right? So, I read is a very specific response to a very uniquely African but very big problem across a number of African markets. And I want you just to talk to us briefly around the process of ensuring that as you build the business model, that this business model was actually embedded within the community and was built in a way to ensure that there's constant collaboration between yourself and the community.
Yeah, so briefly, ARED, as you mentioned, is a technology company for social good. The idea started simply. I came in 2009. I was on the crossroad. I've been in business for 16 years. But for a long time, I was building businesses for the sake of making money. That was my purpose at that time. And in 2009, I came onto a crossroad where I wanted more. I wanted a meaning to my life. So ARED came as a simple idea of how can I solve two problems. At that time, cell phone was growing, and so I was like, well, charging phone was a big problem in rural areas, semi-urban area, but also how can I incorporate a micro-franchise model where I can empower people economically. So I hire people from the community, train them, operate the kiosk. So that's what the idea was, and every time you solve a problem, you have to simplify from the beginning, right? Because you start with a thesis, you start with an idea. You know for sure that whatever idea you have is not going to be the idea you're going to end up with, because you have to go through the process, right? But you have to start simple, and then you got to get feedback from whoever your customers are, you know, to learn from your market and all this thing. And that's how it started. It started in 2009. So we're a hardware and software company. So we developed a solar kiosk with a software component. But the idea I had back then is definitely different from now. Plus, what I realized, you know, instead of trying to do everything yourself, look at the whole value chain.
Yeah.
Partnership is key. It minimizes your cost of operation. It minimizes having to hire a bunch of staffing to solve another problem that you see on the value chain. Trying to see in the ecosystem you are, what are other players that are trying to solve similar problems? I'll give you a perfect example. For us, for example, we train our micro-franchisee to operate those kiosks. We don't do the training. We partner with World Vision, for example. They do the training for us. We also operate in refugee camps now. So trying to minimize, because we cannot solve all the problems. Don't try to solve everything. You're going to get overwhelmed, and at some point you will quit.
I really love the analogy that you're using of the value chain, because it's really about almost igniting every piece of the chain to do what it's best at, so that everybody sort of moves in the same direction. But Henri, I want to stay with you a little bit longer, because I know that there is a distinction between just entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. And I'd love to hear your experience, because as you said, there came a moment in your life where you were like, it's got to be more than just about the money, it's also got to be about these communities. I suspect that although that's really heartwarming, it's actually more difficult than entrepreneurship. What's your experience been?
I mean, yeah, so I was very naive, which is a good thing. If I knew what I know now, maybe it would be a different story. But yeah, entrepreneurship is hard. Social entrepreneurship is even harder. You know, and what you're going to hear noise for telling you this is not a good idea. Be careful who you listen to, guys. That's very important. You're going to have doubts. It's okay, you know, as long as you don't quit. You're going to want to, you know, you're going to fail at some point. Accept it, you know. You're going to fail at something, but you're going to learn from those failures. But social entrepreneurship is a long journey. There's nothing easy, because now you're impacting somebody else. And I always say that the difference between a dream and a purpose, a dream is selfish. It's about what you want out of life.
Yeah.
A purpose is about others, you know. And you guys, I mean, what I've seen so far is most of you guys have stepped up to the purpose already. So you're already ahead of the game, and I'm very impressed. I wasn't. I had to go through the journey. But allow yourself to go through the process, guys. Because what you're doing is bigger than yourself. At least that's the way I feel.
Sure. So make sure you're clear of the clear distinction between the dream and living for purpose. I think somebody else once said, you know, there's a big difference between a job and work. A job is what you get up and you go to do every single day. The work is your life's work. It's your purpose. It's the thing that you've been designed for and the thing that you're contributing through your place in the value chain, to borrow your analogy again. Thank you very much for that. Yvonne, let's come back. We are in Kigali. You were born in Kenya. You've had a range of amazing opportunities to work and to study in Canada, in the US, in France. And yet, when you started doing your life's work, living your purpose, you ensured that this was located back in the community from which you come. Talk to us a little bit about the why and the thinking behind that decision.
Okay, so to do that, I have to tell you a little bit about what Nexakili is. So I'm a scientist, I'm an immunologist. I spent a lot of years doing cancer research, trying to understand why the immune system doesn't prevent you from getting a cancer, for example. Because when you get infected by some microorganism or other, usually your immune system is very good at fighting that. So when someone gets a cancer, typically it's because something about the immune system is not working very well. So I was working at the Curie Institute, and at some point it was just very clear that I was working on some really cutting-edge stuff that clearly was not present on the African continent. And it struck me as a great injustice that I'm Kenyan and African, and that no matter what I did in terms of research and discovery, it would help France first, and then Europe, and then first world countries, and Africa last.
Right.
And the fact that I'm Kenyan doesn't seem to matter in the order of how these things happen. And it just seemed to me just really, really not fair. And so I said to myself, okay, well then, what can I do? And it happens at the same time my aunt was diagnosed with lung cancer, and so my family was kind of like, well, you're the scientist, what should we do? And I'm like, well, leave Kenya, because the best hope is in there. And so this was just something that was already nagging me, which is why I think if you have something that's nagging you, just spend some time thinking about why do you feel that this is nagging you personally, and are there people that share the same desire to do something about that problem? And so eventually the question then was, well, what can I, should I go back? What should I do? It was very clear that I couldn't go back myself because I wasn't going to be able to integrate into a high-powered research team and do the same type of research that I was doing in France. And so then I said, well, then there's got to be lots of other people who feel like me, who've gone to do their schooling abroad, who probably want to go back, who work on all sorts of diverse research areas, and they get faced with the exact same situation where they say, well, I can't really go back because nobody's doing Parkinson's disease research, nobody's doing Alzheimer's disease research, nobody's doing, research on some, mental disease research, for example. However, if you're abroad, you can continue to do this. And so the solution that I thought was, the problem is brain drain, and the problem is bigger than brain drain because once the people leave, they have a very difficult time coming back.
Yeah.
So how can we create a community of Africans, whether they live on the continent or abroad, that can still work together, that can still collaborate on research topics that are interesting to them? This is important. It's not a one of these like feel-good stories. I was working in Paris. I collaborated with Australians that I never met in my life, and we worked on research projects together, and we published papers together. The technology we have today allows us to work together across geographies, across regions, across disciplines. We don't have to be geographically located in the same place. What this means is we have an absolute wealth of Africans, experts in neuroscience, in medical physics, also, if you can imagine anything, there's an African that's an expert in that somewhere in the world. And the question is, how do we link these people together? Not only those who are abroad, but with those who are on the continent, so that we can all share in some sort of collaborative intelligence model that allows us to make our skills absolutely available to the regions where we come from.
Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, I want to almost latch back to one of your earlier comments around don't dismiss the nagging question, because that's the thing that allows you to actually almost latch onto your purpose. But you've also spoken about technology, and I'm going to get to the technology conversation in a second, because technology is opening up new possibilities around collaboration. And maybe, Yvonne, there's also something back to that nagging question. There's a poet called David White, and David White has a poem called Sometimes. And in that poem, he talks about the questions that have no right to go away. And each of us know that there are questions that are nagging us, and we know that those questions have no right to go away. If you're good, big on poetry, I suggest you have a read up on David White. Some really amazing things that come from him. Let me come back to you, Elie. You know, one of the things is that when we talk about collaboration, whether it's in the context of value change and social enterprise, or collaboration of scientists and health practitioners and reconnecting them back to the continent, is that when we all work alongside each other and we work collaboratively, what we tend to do is we tend to disrupt and bring new thinking, sometimes to old problems, and sometimes even to new problems. But if we're going to bring new thinking and new ways of doing, we've got to break some rules. And so I'm kind of keen and interested to hear, what are the rules do you believe are just not serving Africa's young people? Rules that have just got to go if we're going to make any notable progress?
So that's an interesting question, and I would like to ask from the audience.
Sure.
How many of you know this rule that the eldest person in the house, or the eldest person in the group, or the leader of the group takes the final decision?
Yes, pretty much sounds like something I know too.
So, well, I think, and this is something that, well, throughout the few things I've been part of, we've not always gone ahead with our leaders' decisions. Because if we think this, we have this thing that, starting from home, going back to school, your teachers, you're not supposed, when they speak, you have to look down.
Yeah.
When your parents, you have to look down. At least you still have to look down. But how, don't want to cause problems here, but I mean, how do we now break the rules in a good way? How do we create conversations with our parents, with our teachers? And I'll give an example, for example, when I was part of the Rwanda Pharmaceutical Students Association, and by then, we were trying to also, I've been part of lots of hosting different conferences in the country, and we were bringing the African Pharmaceutical Students Symposium here. So one of the things that from previous generations, what they were doing is, you do not go to talk to your teacher about something that's not related to classes. Yeah? So you're not supposed to go and tell them and share with them ideas that you have. So in our case, we would not be able to host this conference if we did not engage our teachers. So I think if many of you are maybe studying abroad, there's a different approach that you have with your teachers, and that's great. Yeah. But here sometimes we face that because the teacher is supposed to only talk to them and asking questions with regards to classes, and if it's not that, then you don't do that. So for us, what we did, we still had the understanding that it's in our culture, this is how it happens, but how do we bring him on board with our conference? So that was the first conference that we hosted, and he played a huge role in for us being able to host the conference. And from ever since, we've had him as a patron for all the conferences that we've been hosting. Yeah. So that's one, breaking the rule that your teacher is not just about classes.
Yeah.
And being able now, but how do you break the rules as well? So you're not going to fight. And there's this thing about young people wanting a space on the table. Yeah. We all want to be part of the leadership conversation, but we're not going to go there while we're just chanting, no?
Yeah.
We're going to bring a different perspective from a young person's perspective on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be how do you break the rules, but as well bringing value to the table.
I love that. I love that because I think the conversation around whether culture enables or constrains is always going to come up. And as Africans, we almost need to co-create a new way that allows us to respect our culture, respect our traditions, and get the job done, right? And get the job done. So I'm mindful of the time, and I really want to bring your voices into the conversation. We still have quite a bit to talk about, but I'm going to open it up. But some of the things that I still want to talk about is technology, and I love this example because it automatically makes me think of you, Yvonne, and to say, for women, is the cultural consideration even heavier, right? So I'm gonna just throw that back at you in case somebody else wants to ask it as a question. Can I please have my roving mics? I see there are 2 roving mics. All right, so if you'd like to make a comment or a question, please just raise your hand and kindly please indicate to whom you'd like to ask the question. Because of time, we can't always have all the panelists responding to one question, so choose carefully. And then there's this other thing I need to tell you about. It's called Moderator Superpowers, and that means if you're speaking for too long, I will ask you to sit down. Yeah? All right, awesome. Right, couple of hands. I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6 hands. All right, so let's work our way. I'll take some notes and we'll do it thematically. Please go ahead. A quick intro and a sharp question.
My name is Maria. My question goes to Henry. One of blockers to young people joining businesses or starting innovations are policies, because they are country policies we have to follow. I want to start something, but I have to pay for it to be legal, and I have to pay a lot of money, or I have to go and bribe someone. So how can we go about that? Because it's very common in African countries.
Okay, thank you very much. And your name is?
Maria.
Maria. All right, thank you very much, Maria. There's another hand very close to Maria. Yes, the gentleman in the light blue shirt, just behind you, madam. There he is. Thank you very much.
I'm Joel from KNUS, Ghana.
Yes, Joel.
So I would like to direct my question to Mandela. You talked about collaboration, getting people on board, everyone involved. And when we talk of business venture, that you need to collaborate with partners, each of the partners have their own goals. And you need to get all your goals aligned. So I'd like to ask, how do you manage to let these people buy into your idea? How do you manage to make these people separate their individual interests and the collective interests?
Thank you very much. Great question, right? Thanks, Joel. There's a hand right here. Please go ahead. I'm going to take 6, and then I'll come back for a second round. Okay? So let's go ahead.
Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm from Ghana.
Hi, Benjamin.
Thank you for being here. Henry, I watch most of your videos on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. My question is, we are in Africa, and most of the time when you want to have a startup or start a business, you have to create a system, because the system don't work here. First create a system before you actually start your business. You have to end up being more innovative than someone in the Western world. How do you actually have that drive to push to continue to do that, even though we are in this type of situation? And my last question is to all of us, all of you.
Benjamin, you're breaking the rules. What is the question?
Yeah, what vision do you have for Africa as the future leaders of Africa, so that we can share that vision and push that vision forward?
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. Let me come to this side of the room, please. Can we get someone from this side of the room? Madam, please stand up. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abisa. I come from Cameroon, and my question is directed to Henry. So you talked about how the difference between a dream and a purpose is that a dream is selfish, whereas a purpose is basically selfless. And that reminds me of how back when we were taught that you have to be like a candle, right? A candle burns itself down to provide light for the entire house. But at the same time, I'm also wondering, because I went to the school called African Leadership Academy, and we were taught that we are leaders of Africa. But when you go back home, and sometimes you try to implement some of these things that you want to do for your people, and even just in your family, it seems as though your own family is the one trying to drag you down, right? So, and I also understand that, and I know that many of us have gone through this, I also understand that sometimes you need to encourage yourself and find some sort of self-interest in what you're doing to motivate yourself. So instead of, I just want to ask, instead of being that candle that burns itself to provide light, why can't we be that flashlight that doesn't have to burn itself, but can still survive in the process of providing light for others? And is it okay to think about yourself in doing the things that you're doing?
Thank you very much. So it's a great question. We're moving from candles to flashlights. So anybody who's planning on writing a paper on leadership or anything, it's no longer candles, we're flashlights. Right. So I've taken 4, I'm going to take 2 quick ones, right? There's a bias. Please, can we have this side of the room? And then I'll take one last one, this side of the room. I see you, I'll come back to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, fellow student from AB. My question is to Yvonne. She has pointed out something to do with brain drain. Personally, when I got my scholarship, I told my family and friends, like, I've got a scholarship. The first thing they asked me was, is it here or abroad? And I was like, it's abroad. They told me, when you go, don't come back. I was like, what are you saying? My scholarship told, when I reached, they told me as Mastercard, you need to go back and give to your community. My community back home has lost trust and doesn't want me back. So, what can we do as people who really want to give back to a community that has lost trust?
Thank you very much, Susan. Great, great question. And final question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Prince.
Prince.
My question is directed to you, Yvonne. You mentioned that if you have something that nags you, listen to it. As someone who's also doing chemistry and interested in research, I find that quite challenging because the question that was nagging me when I was back home was the interest in diseases like cholera. And then now when I go to university, I'm sort of witnessing new ideas. For example, now mental health related research. These are things I wasn't aware of when I was back home, but now they're interesting. So did you ever come across a situation where the question that nagged you to go somewhere changed, and now you have to deal with, you have 2 things that are conflicting, and you want to do one, at the end of the day, you want to pick one topic, but it's sort of, which one do you take? Because cholera relates more to African communities, but mental health is also important, so how do you deal with that conflict?
Beautiful question. Thanks, Prince. All right, so we've got a range of questions. Maybe Henry, let me come to you first. The first question that came from Maria was really around, the reality of working within African markets oftentimes means regulatory burdens, policy that is not enabling, even going as far as having to bribe. How do you then work around this?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to understand the role of an entrepreneur is what? Solving problems, right? So if you look at problems, if you look at challenges as a big problem, then your mindset is wrong. It is true. So we operate in 2 countries. Corruption issues exist everywhere around the world. I've run businesses in the States. I run businesses here. We're about to start in Nigeria next year. You have to find a solution to your problem, and there's always a solution to the problem. If I've never bribed since I've been back home, so the question. I'm in Nigeria. I'm in Uganda also.
This is a safe space, guys. It's a safe space. Go ahead.
No, but what I'm trying to challenge you in is that there's always a solution. There's multiple doors to solve a problem. It's not just one problem, one solution. So you need to find a different way to solve your problem. I don't know the specifics, but I'm pretty sure there's a different way for you to solve problems. But you cannot start a thesis or your journey telling yourself those problems.
Yeah.
Because then you're already discouraging yourself and telling yourself, because a lot of those problems also are amplified, and we start buying into this issue. So you need to get started, first of all. Second of all, you need to figure out how to solve the different problems as they come. You're not going to solve everything at one time.
I really love that because I think it also links to the question that came from Benjamin, where he says, well, sometimes in Africa, you come with an idea, but you need to create the entire system that allows that idea to live in the first place. Your thoughts around how do you then do that? Do you go in, or do you first go and say, let me have a look to see if there's anybody who can co-create with me?
Well, having a partner can help, especially a partner that has skill set that you don't have, so you guys can complement yourself. But again, the thing is, we create a reality before we even get started. And then we start telling ourselves, we start destroying our own dream before we even get started, you know. And that's what I've seen a lot of time with young entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs, you know. But if you fear already challenges, then this is not for you, first of all. Because the journey of an entrepreneur is you're going to have challenges every day. This is the life you have to choose and accept it. You know, you're going to face problems every day. Your daily job is what? Solving problems. That's what I do all day, every day. So if you're not ready for that, then please don't be a social entrepreneur. Work for a social entrepreneur. That might work better.
So let me stay with you, Henri, before I move to Yvonne and Elie, because Abita raised a really good question. I mean, we laughed about the idea of moving from candles to flashlights, but I think it's a very important issue around reintegration back into the communities if you've been outside of that community. And her question really was around, should we be rethinking what the role that we play when we come back? And there's almost, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, Abita, so please bear with me here. I'm almost hearing that we almost need to let go of some sort of hero complex that we might come in with into these spaces to say, I'm here to light everybody's candles versus I'm an enabler that's going to allow everybody else to be a flashlight in their own way. What are your thoughts on that? And I think, Yvonne, you have some thoughts on that as well, so we'll bring you in. Yes?
Yeah, sure. A very quick story. You know, I had a successful business in the States, and then I got tired. I was ready to come home. I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm coming home. I have this idea of charging phones. And then she paused for a second. She's like, why are you coming back for? This is not going to work. The point of this, and true story, and my mom has been supportive, by the way. She's a great mom. I won't sound like I love my mother. But the point is this, and that's something I've learned as I got older. The dreams are given to you as an individual. You can't expect somebody else to understand the dream you have. And the mistake we make as individuals, we share our dreams to people that don't really understand the vision that you have inside you. And then, because we value their opinion, we value what they believe in, we start feeding and be like, okay, maybe they're right. I always say, that dream is given to you. Don't listen to the noise. To me, they're now noise. If I tell you how many people told me this was not going to work, I wouldn't even be here speaking to you. So don't listen to the noise. I don't believe you need to redesign anything. If this is what you want to do, you believe in it, just do it, period.
Yeah. So that's going to be a hard one for you to follow up on, Elie, because one of the questions was, well, if everybody has that mindset to say, I'm going to go for it, how do you then create alignment around those goals? I'll come to that, but I want to go to Susan's question, which was to Yvonne, and linked to the response that we've just had and now from Henri, because Yvonne was saying, again, huge celebration because the scholarship is abroad and not based on the continent. And then this idea that you want to come back. For what? For who? Right? For why? For why? Yeah? Yeah. Okay? So I'd love your thoughts on that. I'd love to hear what your take is on this.
So there's two ways to look at this, right? There's the individual standpoint, which is you do what's best for you. The person who asked the question about, is it okay to be selfish? Absolutely, because you need a roof over your head or else you can't save anybody, you can't save yourself. That's the first thing. But what you have to understand is people are truly traumatized. We've grown up in societies where we don't expect very much from our government, we don't expect very much from our neighbors, we don't expect very much from the people around us. And so we think it's normal to not have running water. We think it's normal that electricity goes out every once in a while. We think it's normal that we don't have access to proper health care. We think it's okay that kids are still studying under trees. These things are not okay. And so the problem is people have gotten to a point now where they kind of just accept this as the reality in Africa. Yeah. And the difference with you guys is that you're not accepting those things, you're challenging those things. And you're going to come in contact with people who tell you, why do you think you can do anything differently? The whole thing is, it's pointless. Go and don't come back because we're a lost case. And because you fundamentally have rejected that statement, Everything you do will be in opposition to what these people have accepted. And it's up to you to stick to that belief system. This is the personal challenge that you have to deal with every day. I have to deal with that with my own family, literally, like on a daily basis. It's like I'm constantly, in this constant contest with them, because I believe, from a health standpoint, that we can have world-class healthcare in African countries. That to people who don't have access to basic vaccines and everything, and they look at me like I'm completely crazy. But it's also because you have to take time to understand, why don't we have those things? And if you want to start something around that, and it's interesting, I'm going to try and answer a couple questions at the same time. The person that said, well, what if I have, this thing that's nagging at me and then I haven't, I can't tell you how many things are nagging at me. So many. I wish I was, I could clone myself, then I could deal with so many of these issues. The trick is to put your ego aside and support people who are working on the things that you want to work on, but you don't have enough time to do. And so there's something that you can lead at, that you're really good at and you want to do that thing. And when you find somebody else that's working on mental health that you care about, but you know you cannot lead on that, your job is to support that person and put in 10% there. And maybe put in 5% someplace else. Because that's the only way we're going to grow together. Is not everybody has to be the champion of everything. But be the champion of that one thing and support the other people that are working on things that you care about.
You don't always have to be the champions of everything. Be a champion in your own space and support other people to be champions in theirs. Now, Elie, the question that came from Joel links beautifully to some of the comments that have come through already. And if you have any other comments on the earlier questions, you're welcome to address them. But maybe let's start off with Joel. Again, and he talks about you're working with people who are driven by certain goals that speak to their own interests. How do we get people to get to a place where they say, I'm going to align around your goal? And that might be slightly different from what I had intended when I started.
So, well, I think, and something beautiful that Yvonne just said is, if you're interested in many things, there's some things that you can focus on, and there's some things that you can learn how to. And this comes back to, she also mentioned the fact that we grow up in communities where there's not enough. So we grow up with the scarcity mindset. There's not enough pie for everyone, so I'm going to take as much as I can, as soon as I can, all right? So once you're starting a venture and your first interest is to take as much as you can, then you're not going to be able to collaborate because you want it all for yourself, So if the person you're going to work with, you're not really in line, don't work with them, It's very important to be able to find. So I'll come back from my own perspective of being very much involved in youth-led organizations. And if you have a specific, so we were working once again on the World Healthcare Student Symposium, and so that's bringing together students from all different health aspects. So if you have a certain vision that it's set by the World Healthcare Student Symposium, and so that's what we're working on, and it was basically how do you bring in as many students as you can. So if we have one partner that's not, or that has an interest in something else than what you want, so we'll just have to let them go ahead with what they're doing, and then we go forward, because once there's the fact that you need to be flexible as well. So sometimes you have to let go of your ego and then understand, well, how do you accommodate the other person's interest? Because it's not always going to be your own interest. As long as the interests are building up together to a certain thing, then that's when you're able to collaborate. But if these interests are all conflicting and all have this mindset of scarcity, I want to have it all by myself, then that's definitely not going to work. And I also wanted to comment on something about the nagging question of I want to work on something. And so I'll also give a personal story, and I've been involved, like I mentioned, in different youth-led organizations, and recently I was with the Hult Prize. The Hult Prize brings together students who are working on social enterprises within universities. And the main reason why I was involved in this is we have lots of young people that are not able to showcase what they have. So this was a platform for me to do this. But before that, I was also involved in health. Yeah. So I'm a pharmacist by training, by the way. So there's the fact that I'm in health. I'm also in social entrepreneurship. But there is one common line that brings everything together. It's how do we enable young people to actually thrive. Yeah. So by the time I was within the Hult Prize, I was a volunteer there. So there are a few things you need to make ends meet. Yeah? So I had to get a job. So in my mind, if I'm going to get a job, I'm not getting a job where I want to do this thing with youth. Yeah. So I have to find a job somewhere else. So I got a great opportunity. I'm now working with Johnson & Johnson, but it's a pharma. Yeah. So how do I bring back what I want to do with young people within this specific space I'm in? Yeah. So the fact that there's something you want to work on does not remove the basic needs that you have, right? So what has been happening for the couple of months I've been involved in, first, how do you bring your interest into the area where you're working? So right now, I'm lucky that I have a great boss and we've been talking about my interest with young people. So I'm spearheading once again how do we bring young people within health. Yeah? So the fact that you have something nagging at you or something that you really want to work on, but you're involved in something else, does not remove that from you directly. So how do you integrate it in what you're doing if you're able to? Yeah.
So bringing the nagging question and the reality of having to earn together is perhaps one of the ways that we express and we live and lead our purpose. I think that's great, and I'm coming back to the audience now for more questions, but I think one of the things that you've said, Elie, that I think is very important, I'm going to paraphrase here, is if we're going to work alongside people and we want to collaborate, the why has to be shared. The why we're doing this is the non-negotiable. What you do versus what you do versus what you do in the collaboration is going to be different. How you do it versus how you do it versus how I do it is going to be different because you're all bringing different parts of the value chain together. But we cannot create any room for confusion around the why of why we're doing it, because that will spill into the values of the how and the what as well. But what we actually do, the thing that we deliver, is going to be different. And I'm just sharing that in relation to Joel's question, Joel, and that is really cement the why. And if the why is in place, that's your true north. And that's the moral compass that's going to allow you to bring everybody on board, even if the goals are slightly different. But we're working towards a shared outcome. That's right. Let's take more questions. I see you. Listen. we've got a few more questions. I'm going to TikTok on either side to try to be fair as possible. I promised you that I will allow you to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Shukri, and I'm a scholar at American University of Beirut, and I'm from Somalia. I have a question, but my question, feel free to answer Mandela and also Yvonne. It's something that we were talking about since yesterday, about community and collaboration in African Renaissance that we are witnessing right now. So my question is, we talked about collaboration among Africans that are living abroad and those ones who are in the continent and what they can do. My question is that how can we collaborate when sometimes you mentioned, Mandela, that many young Africans cannot get visas to go abroad and participate events and stuff like that. Coming from Somalia, in the spirit of not leaving someone behind, when it comes to us collaborating with other Africans, not the world even, it's difficult. So in such situations, what are you doing about that as an African leader or youth leader, or what can we do? What are you suggesting?
Shukri, thank you very much. So let me come this side. So it's a how question given the geographic issues and the visa issues and so on. Let me come this side. Where's the microphone? Okay, so let's give the lady here in the front an opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nadine Tim. I study at Ashesi University and I'm Cameroonian. So there's been a crisis in my country for the past 2 years, And I'm talking to my friends back in Cameroon that I have this idea I would like to come and start up. And then they tell you, you're not here, you don't know what is happening, so why would you want to come and solve a problem you're not even part of? But I'm most affected, even though I'm not in the country. I have my family back there, and even outside, I kind of have a misplaced identity. Because when you tell people I'm English-speaking Cameroonian, then it's like you're telling them a whole new story and you have to start explaining yourself. So how do I let these people see that I'm affected and I can also do something about it?
Fantastic. Who would you like to answer your question, Adam? Who would you like to answer your question? Anyone, so I will choose someone, okay? Fantastic. That's great. Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Marian Apio. I'm a Mastercard Foundation Scholar at Makerere University. My question goes to Henry. Thank you so much for your insights. You talked about us being so careful about getting ideas or listening to other people. We always also advise, you said actually, be careful who you listen to. Be careful. And my question is, we're told to be open-minded and listen to other people and taking what they're telling us. How are we going to be sure that the person we're listening to is really telling us what we need? Because I like to listen to people, so
yeah. Thank you, great question. How do we balance being cautious with being open-minded? Back the side, okay. I see you. Yes, you can stand so the microphone comes to you. Yes, yes, yes. You see, the man will stand when I'm choosing you because you are not sure. So go ahead. I'll come back and I'll choose you next time. Go.
My name is Chima, and I study in Michigan. My question is to Yvonne. Can you share with me some practical experiences you had establishing scientific collaboration in Africa, in very abstract areas, like areas that are very important on the continent, but are very, very sparse?
All right, Chima. Right, Chima, take the microphone, turn around, give it to that lady behind you. There we go.
Thank you very much. My name is Tibahela. I studied at Ashesi University in Ghana. I'm from Lesotho. So my question is to you, Yvonne. You say that we don't have to be champions in everything. We have to be champions in our own space. I feel like this is quite confusing for people with multiple interests like me. You know, I find it very hard to actually focus on one thing and make sure that it works. So I would like you to tell us, like, how do we find our own space and assuredly make sure that it works without neglecting our own interests, our other interests, I mean.
Please, I do apologize. Okay, I will allow it. It has to, and I will allow you, so it has to be short and sharp. Please.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Mburu. I studied at Ashesi University, coming from Kenya. My question goes to Yvonne. For instance, Nexakili, I personally did not know about it. I just came to know about it today. My issue is always about information. For instance, people who live in the rural areas, they have a tough time getting access to this kind of information. Personally, I hate bureaucracies. How do you get past these bureaucracies in order to make sure that your information gets to these people? Because you are all about the impact, not about like money or anything. How do you get past all these bureaucracies?
Okay, and sir with the laptop, please. You have the final question. There you go. And you've got 2 microphones.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Steven. I'm from African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Senegal. My question goes to Yvonne as well. The question is, looking at, we get opportunities like, for instance, as Mastercard scholars to get enrolled to courses that we really want to do, for instance, data science and so. And you look at the application of it. So the field that you want to apply or the skill set that you've built as you learn, by the time you're graduating, you look at the places that you want to invest in. Like for instance, I'm interested in applying my knowledge and skills in African context, in Kenya in particular, because I'm a Kenyan. But you realize that as you look at different companies that offer the skill set that you are building up, either 2 or 3, and definitely it's competitive and things like that. So you have this nagging idea.
Stephen, you have the final word and you're making a speech.
Yeah, so how do you achieve this, to still implement this?
So the question is about skill and application.
Yes, applying it in the African context.
Okay. All right. It's a great question. Thank you. All right. So I think Yvonne should go first. Lots of questions coming through, and I'll definitely remind you. So one of the questions came from Shukmi, and Shukmi is saying, how do we ensure that there is a sense of no one is being left behind, especially when you have African markets like Somalia, where she comes from, that geographically, might be difficult to connect with other opportunities. She's saying, forget collaborating globally, just within Africa, it's difficult for us to even move around. And I guess the question that I'm now throwing at you as you answer her is that does collaboration always have to be physical? But let me allow you to respond.
So, yeah, hopefully this will help me to group together a few questions. The thing about wanting to act locally is it's extremely important because it's the way to actually reach the need at that specific place. Now, I wanted to act locally without being locally present in all these different places. So how did I choose to do it? I said, okay, well, why don't we get lots of different people who can then, pass along this impact to the local level. But the questions are always around how can you get people that are interested in a particular topic to apply it to the region that they care the most about. That's really what my entire project is about. It's saying that I care about Africa as a continent, but surely I cannot solve the entire Africa. But if I can work with all Africans, whether they're located in Africa or they're located abroad, then surely we have enough diversity of people that somebody will be interested in a local community in Somalia, a local community in Cameroon, a local community elsewhere. And this allows me to go to so it's funny because the question he asked about a specific example of a collaboration in an African context is in fact has been a problem for me, which allows me to answer the question about, well, what if the system just doesn't let you do what you want to do? So what did I want to do? I was an immunologist and I wanted to collaborate with African immunologists. Kenyan, Ugandan, South African, Cameroonian, it didn't matter. I couldn't find any. If you had asked me, if you're going to move to the US, where are you going to work? I would have rolled off the top of my head 5 different laboratories and I told you right away who I could work with, what I'd work on. I couldn't tell you a single African laboratory with whom I could work. That was a problem. And so then I could have just said, well, the system is a problem. Now what do I do? Well, change the system. We have to be engaged citizens. In other words, you've identified a problem. The problem is much bigger than you, and you've identified a potential solution. But your action cannot rest only at your level. You have to figure out what must we advocate for at a societal level in order for the system to evolve to allow my solution to be applicable in my area. So I said, well, I want to be an immunologist in this specific setting, but I guess I'm going to have to work a little bit on the system, which means there isn't any structure today that allows an immunologist like me to collaborate with an African. So why don't I create a social business that allows people to do that? In some ways, this is my answer to the system, but it's not a complete answer, because eventually what needs to happen is we need to stop losing so many brains.
Yeah.
When you go to these fantastic conferences and people are like, what do we do about health in Africa? And I just want to be like, well, let's take all the doctors out of France and all the scientists, and then let's have a conversation about what should we do about healthcare in France.
Yeah.
To me, it's pretty obvious that the problems are pretty clear. We shouldn't accept that some of the brightest brains will just go away and we won't offer any structure for them to come back, and we're going to sit here for 100 years and talk about how do we solve this problem as if we don't know what the problem is. So in some ways you do know what the problem is, and in some ways we've contributed, and so I feel like I'm part of that loss, right? But how can I get more engaged so that the system can evolve to allow local initiatives to actually take off and to happen?
I'm going to ask Henri for you to just to latch onto this, because I think the systemic conversation is quite important, because oftentimes what it reveals to us is that we might be solving for the wrong problem. There is a problem that we're excited about. This is the thing we want to solve. When we get into the space, we realize actually the problem is something far more further down the value chain. You can't solve for this until you've solved for that. You spoke about agility earlier. You spoke about the ability to be flexible and to move around. How important is it that when you're encountered with a space where the system is not enabling, how important is it for you as an entrepreneur to be open-minded about maybe rethinking the problem that you sought to solve in the first place?
I always say, when you do entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, you spend so much time dealing with problems that you become automatically a problem-solving person. So I never look at the problem firsthand. I always look at different solutions I can have to solve that problem. And I said earlier, there's no problem that you can't solve. But too many times we focus on the specific problem, and then we get discouraged because we actually believe it can't be solved. And I hear a lot about these corruption things or whatever.
Systemic issues.
Yeah, the system and all those things. But then again, now with technology, a lot of things have changed. I'll give you a perfect example just to explain. One of the issues we have is how can we expand in other countries with our technology without having to raise a lot of capital and bring our solution to a different country in Africa. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I came up with a solution of licensing. A lot of time we want to go and open offices and all those things. No, just find a partner that is like-minded like you and share the vision, want to use your technology or your solution, and share that. Yes, you'll earn less, but you'll be able to expand much faster. So again, it's a mindset. You have to stop thinking the traditional way and really think outside.
You've got to love problems. You've got to wake up and love problems.
Yes. I would even say adore problems. I do. It wasn't like this. It's a process. You don't wake up one day and say I love problems. No. But you get to a point where you realize, okay, this is the life I've chosen. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life, because social entrepreneurship is not I want to do these 25% and the rest. No, this is you have to be passionate about. And when you embrace those things, you have to embrace the problem.
So let's talk about the narrative, because the question that came from Marian was, well, on the one hand, there's the guidance and the advice that we need to be careful or to be cautious. But on the other hand, there's also guidance and advice that says we've got to be open-minded. What's the magic space in the middle? What does that look like? Cautious, open-minded, is there a middle ground?
For listening, right? For people. I have a simple story for that. When I say beware who you listen to, a lot of times we listen to friends and family that are in the same problems that we are, same issue, but they're giving you advice on how to be successful. And we wake up and we're like, yeah, maybe he's right. Why is he right? Why is not right? So what you do is very simple. If you want to be successful in business, you listen to somebody who's successful in business. If you want to be a doctor, you listen to a doctor. If you want to be a social entrepreneur, you listen to a social entrepreneur. That's what I meant. You need to vet the voice that come into your ear, because it can pollute your brain easily. I've seen so many people quitting their dream because they listen to the wrong person.
Sure. So that broadcast is just very important, because a lot is going to be coming at you, and to be able to be discerning enough about the things that give you strength and power to continue versus the things that are going to slow you down and make you discouraged is so important. Elie, I want to come to the question that came from Nadim about this idea of once you leave a certain community, when you come back, you have some sort of a misplaced identity. You're no longer one of us because you left, right? And you had these, you had great time in Canada and the US and France, whatever the case may be. But her question, I think, is very important. How do you begin to reposition yourself in the hearts and the minds of the community that I'm still one of you, and my intentions are still about making life better for all of us here, even if I don't live in this geography, or even if I left, but I'm back.
So I think, and this is purely what I think, is first of all, the way I'm looking at it is either you're talking to them, but you're not back home, right? So you're speaking to them and you're not there. Yeah. So, and for people to be able to buy into what you're doing, they need to first trust you. Yeah. So if they're saying, or if they're saying this is not a shared issue, and you're actually not there, the only way to show that it's a shared issue is you to be there. Yeah? If you're working on, I'm looking at it, if you're working on a challenge, and it actually affects you, the solution that you're bringing is the one that's going to prove to them that it's a shared challenge. So they need to be able to trust you that what you're doing, and they need to see that. They don't only need to hear that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think I wouldn't say much about it because I've personally not been in that situation. And I think I'll definitely maybe let Yvonne.
I'll come back to Yvonne. I'm trying to sift some questions away from her so that we can have more. And Yvonne, I'm going to come back to the question to you around the application that was raised by Stephen, because I think that's quite important. But before we go there, I'm stealing another Yvonne question, so please bear with me. Debahelo, I think, raises a very important question where she's like, the one part of the conversation is about, be a champion in your own space, whether it's about bringing your own strength and support other people, but, do your own thing. But she's saying, well, actually, I think I want to do a whole lot of different things, right? And you do a lot of different things, right? So any advice for Debahelo on that front? How do you balance staying in your lane? I think that's the phrase that young people like to use, versus living out the full spectrum of who you are.
So I think there's one challenge that we have right now as young people is we're taking in so much information about it. It's a great thing and a bad thing at the same time, but there's so much that's happening around us. There are so many young people that are doing amazing things, and we all at times we want to be like them, yeah? And it's great, we're aspiring to be great people. And at times we also aspire to be like very many different young people. We aspire to be like all these great young people that we're looking at. It's great, it's gonna push you to do more, but at another point it's putting so much pressure on you that you're not even able to do a few things that you can't be able to do. Because you're looking at somebody that's doing business and you want to be like them. You're looking at someone who's running an NGO and you want to be like them. You're looking at someone who's a researcher and you want to be like them. It's not going to be possible. You cannot be all those people. So personally, I'm very much interested in business. And there's this community that I've grown up with. We've been in university together, and we've run the majority of the projects together. So yeah. So at the point, and this is a phenomenon that has been interesting to people who've been seeing us go through university. So at the point when there is a project that I'm interested in, and like for example, when social entrepreneurship was coming in, I was the business person in the group, and I led the project, and everybody else was on the bandwagon, but I was leading the team. Yeah. So then something else comes in with health policy. I'm interested, but someone else is taking the lead. Yeah. So basically, is depending on what you're interested in, you put in. At least that's what has happened to me. Is we find somebody that's really interested and spearheading that, and then you can support, not giving the rest. You can be able to do other things, but still being able to support them, yeah? Because you cannot be everyone at the same time.
But you can bring your expertise into different contexts.
Yes.
So we're almost towards the end of the conversation. I want to quickly respond to Stephen, and then I'm going to allow you all to make almost like a closing statement, if you will. Yvonne, Stephen's question was around what happens when you have a tension between the skills that you've attained from abroad or from anywhere else, including the continent, but the tension of not being able to apply it within the community that you want to actually make a difference in?
Well, so what you have to be today, in fact, is a constant learner. This is what I've learned. I am no longer doing immunology, even though that's the thing I spent my entire PhD studying, right? Now I'm in this new world of tech and social networks and big data. I knew absolutely nothing about this. I think what you must commit to is being a learner forever. Because if you're going to work to solve a problem, you're not going to know all the aspects of that problem. You might be a subject matter expert in a certain part of that problem, but you're going to need to work with other people who know different things, and you're going to have to be willing to learn to address this problem and to learn as much as you can about why the local community sees it the way they does and why your solution is applicable in that area. So my solution to this is commit to learning.
So I firstly want to thank you guys for just really leaning into the conversation. I felt that your questions and your comments were really, really strong. I'm going to give the panelists an opportunity just to give us a final word. And again, just almost like 30 seconds, minute, if we will. And I'm going to ask the technical team at the back to assist me by putting up an image that Yvonne is going to speak to as she begins the wrap up first. And you've got that image showing up on screen. So Yvonne, what are we looking at here? And why is this the thing that you want us to walk away with today?
So, of everything I've said, those of you who are falling asleep, this is where you wake up. The most important message I have is that you have to change how you see the world first if you want to change the world. This, last week, August 1st, was the day, it's a big issue in France, where we fit, there's the number of resources that we have on this planet to use are finite, which means at some point we're going to finish up, everything that we're using. So somebody is actually charged with calculating, are we using up the world's resources faster than we should, or are we using it at the rate that we should be using it? So it turns out we're using up the Earth's resources faster than we should. And so every year they have a day that they call the overshoot, the Global Overshoot Day, which is the day when we finished up all the resources that we should have used for 2018. And that was August 1st, which was last week. So this image was tweeted out by the World Economic Forum last week. And what they did is they called out the culprits. Because the average for the world is August 1st, but some countries are using up resources way faster than others. So what this shows is from January to December, if we lived like each of these different countries, when would we use up all the resources for the year? The biggest culprit is Qatar. If we all lived like the Qataris, we would use up a year's worth of resources by February 9th. And those of us who are living in Qatar, you belong in that group. So France, for example, where I live, is May, what is it now again?
Yes,
somewhere in May.
Yeah.
And there's all these different countries. My point is, the only African country that features on this list is Egypt. And Egypt shows up somewhere around November 6th, okay? What this fundamentally means is the rest of the world is using up resources, a lot of resources, and Africa is not using up her fair share or is not using that much. Effectively what's happening is Africans are subsidizing the excesses of the world. What this means is when we're looking to find solutions for the world, whether it's in climate change, energy, for example, we're trying to figure out how do we electrify Africa. We're going to be looking to make solutions so that we can supposedly catch up. But catch up to what? Catch up to these excesses? We have to absolutely change how we do things. We cannot develop our continent in the way that the others developed theirs, or else we're all dead. And so my point is, what you must focus on is changing your mindset and changing the model entirely. Because if we try to do it the way the others do it, all of us, all of humanity is done. So educate yourselves, learn about how should we do it really, and the solutions you're focusing on are not only African solutions, they are global solutions. Demand the respect that you deserve because you are saving the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Elie, or Mr. Mandela, as has been noted. Right. Final comments, what do we take away?
So like I mentioned to you, I'm a very recent graduate, and I'll talk to you as a person who's been in school for the past 5 years. So one thing that I realized, there's more time that you have while you're in school than you're ever going to get once you graduate. Yeah? So I now call myself a self-proclaimed advocate for extracurricular activities. If you're here and you're still in school, find time and do something outside of your class. All right? Learn as much as you can. So it's very simple. Yeah? If you're interested in research, get in a club of researchers outside of class. If you're interested in computer science, get in a club of computer science. If you all start a company. And the reason I'm saying this is because while I was doing pharmacy, truth be told, it's not what I wanted to do. Yeah? So I found refuge in extracurricular activities. And every single thing that I've done, or every single thing that I'm using right now, I did not get in pharmacy school. right? So, and the things you're going to find outside once you're done are going to be different from school. So get involved outside of your class.
Love it. And take us home.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, listening to all the questions, you know, I think, well, I don't think, I know the biggest mistake, the biggest mistake you can do is live a life of regrets, right? As you get older, you don't want to live the if, I should, I could, I would. No, it's what you're doing, because you don't want to look back, and that's the worst thing that's going to happen to you. To get massive results, you need massive action, right? You're not going to give 10% and get 100% back. It just does not, the math don't add up. So whatever you do, don't look at plan B, C, D. Make that choice and die trying till the end of days. That's the way I believe.
So ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap this conversation, we started off with an African adage, and we said what we have learned over time is that if we want to go fast, we go alone. But if we want to go far, we need to go together. What we're also hearing through this conversation is that in the process of going far, we might have to rethink the world altogether, because we are not in the business of catching up. We're actually in the business of redefining what the world needs to look like. What we're also hearing is that if we don't use the time we have now, we may never have the chance to redefine the world, so use it wisely. And finally, what I'm also hearing is that if we are going to be the ones who bring about massive results, we're going to be the ones who have to bring about massive action. It's been such a pleasure being here with you. Thank you very much.
Also, just to say a huge, huge thank you to all four of you for such an engaging conversation and dialogue with this audience. It was so amazing to hear all of you and your journeys of living a life of purpose and significance. So we have a really unique way of showcasing our thanks and appreciation here. So if you all could just stand to the front of the stage. So applause is one thing, and that's a really important way that we say thank you. But we also say thank you by you gave us a lot of energy, you gave us a lot of insights and time, and we are going to give that energy and love back to you in a very unique Baobab way. And your responsibility is to just accept that love, accept that energy in any way that you want to. That means dancing, if that means stretching, we've seen a lot of different things. So you just accept it in any way that you feel like you want to accept this energy. All right, here we go. Let's make it a big one. Wow. Wow. Special Baobab, thank you. All right, so now we're going to head into lunch. So again, lunch is in the same space as it was yesterday. There are a few just lost and found items. So if you have found anything that is not yours, there's a few people that have lost bags that have really important things in them, like passports. So if you have found anything, please go to the registration desk and drop them off there. People are getting a little nervous. There's been some phones missing, so if you find anything that's not yours, please send it over to the registration desk, and we'll also post it on the Lost and Found section of the app. All right, so now it's lunchtime. Enjoy, energize, and then we'll be back in the afternoon.